forms already, and if there's any others, please fill one of these out. We'll go ahead and start the meeting, and you can turn the form in here just in a moment when we finish. We're going to open up with a moment of silence and then a pledge in just a minute. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Rafalowski for the moment of silence, and then Mark Iverson will lead us in the pledge.
Good evening and welcome. This evening during our moment of silence, I would ask that we keep our former principal, David Ward, and his family in our thoughts. Mr. Ward passed earlier in the week, and actually the funeral service was today. He was a long-time employee of our school district, ending his career as principal of Sullivan Central High School, and I had the great honor, as did Dr. Rouse, to spend some time with Mr. Ward during his leadership time, and gleaned a lot from the time that I was able to spend under his tutelage. So this evening, as we think about our moment of silence, I would ask that we keep that family in our thoughts. Thank you. Bow your heads, please. Thank you.
Mr. Iverson.
Attention, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on our item of the agenda is approval of the agenda, and along with the approval of the agenda is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Have a motion to have a second?
Second.
Motion by Dr. Rouse, second by Mr. Gilmore. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
This time now we are ready for public comments for agenda items. First on the agenda asking to speak is Laura White. And if you'll come up to the microphone here at the podium.
Now? Okay.
I have your information here, so I don't need anything other than that. Thanks.
So as a pediatric emergency nurse here in our region, I just wanted to voice that we are seeing a sudden drastic increase in COVID, RSV, parainfluenza, etc. in the pediatric population, and this increase has been almost immediate. As the COVID vaccine is not readily available to all ages, some parents being unsure of whether or not to vaccinate their kids, masking is truly one of the only options. It's the simplest, non-invasive step that we can take to protect our kids in our region. I just want to make it known also that we have also seen a sudden increase in COVID in the pediatric population as compared to before when COVID first started. This new strand of COVID is really affecting the pediatric population. We have diagnosed COVID in infants as young as 3 weeks up to, teenagers as old as 18 years old, and, no one is excluded from this. And here in our region, we just don't have the resources to care for these kids if numbers continue to rise. We only rely, if a kid has to be actually admitted to a hospital and cared for within the ballot system in our region, it's going to be Johnson City. Johnson City is only so big for their pediatric hospital, especially PICU. There are 2, if not more, kids now on a ventilator due to COVID. And where I work here in a smaller part of our region, kids are testing positive for 1, 2, 3 respiratory viruses on top of COVID. And I really feel like we really need to make masking mandatory, because I have 2 or 3 kids within our county school system, and I know them, they're just like all other kids. I can send them to school with a mask and say, don't you take that off. But, you know, if 90% of their classmates aren't wearing one, they're not gonna feel the need to wear one because they're gonna get made fun of, they're gonna get picked on, or it could just be simply that they forget to put it back on after eating lunch because nobody else is. So I just want you guys to really take into consideration to make masking within the school systems mandatory, or at least mandatory for the kids who don't reach the age group of being vaccinated.
Thank you. Thank you. Each speaker has up to 3 minutes as we do the public comments. Next on the list, Angie Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman, for y'all giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I got a few phone calls before I was coming up here to let me know that the mask mandate was on the agenda tonight. And they have asked me to speak on their behalf to please let them come up here and voice their opinions on this, since they did not know that it was on the agenda until 30 minutes ago. So I appreciate it if you all would postpone this vote until the parents can speak on it. Thank you.
Next on the list, Josh Murray. If you'll come to the podium. And I already had you down to on another list, Coach Murray, so I didn't realize.
Should we wait till?
No. This is the appropriate time. I just had it on a different sheet. If,
On behalf of Sullivan, we want to sincerely thank all the members of the board for all the upgrades to our campus. We know the last few years have been tough for everyone, but thanks for your tireless efforts and dedication. We have thrived and have even more to be proud of. As a thank you, we want to invite you to the first game on our new turf where you have all been nominated as honorary captains. Again, we thank you.
Thank you.
and thank you.
Thank you.
And it's because of students like you, the 4 of you standing here, is why we sit up here and do the job that we're trying to do, and we do appreciate it. Thanks, Coach Murray. Coach Hilton?
Hi, I'm Fletcher Gibson, and these are the rest of our captains on the Westridge football team. And we just wanted to thank you guys so much for the new facilities. They're great. They're second to none in the state, and that means a lot, especially being in the 6A division. And I really appreciate all that you've done for us. The turf is wonderful. The school is even better somehow. And we want to invite you guys to our first game and our first home game on September 3rd. Really appreciate you guys doing all that for us.
And that's when you beat the Hilltoppers, is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We're ready for it, and Fletcher, you look a lot different than you did just a few years ago at church.
Just a little bit, yes, sir.
Thank you, and again, folks, this is why we do what we do, is to see the smiles on the faces of these students and all the others that I've seen this week coming and going there at Westridge, and it is awesome. In my 50 years of being in education, I've never experienced a building like that. And you all have something to be proud of. And I know you're going to make us proud just like we're proud of you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
we're ready for the director's comments.
As director, I can't tell you all that I enjoy anything more than having our students come to our board meetings and getting to spend time out in our schools with our students. Our students are extremely special. They do a great job, and I'm so very, very proud of them. As I begin the next part of my presentation, I'm going to come down for some additional recognition. Again, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here to share in this student recognition with me. I think we all are aware of what's going on right now in the world. We have Olympics going on, but I'm proud to tell you that here this evening with us, we have our own medalists. And I'm so very proud of them and how they have represented our school district, their school and themselves, and their sponsors in competitions this summer. The first group I'd like to recognize is from Sullivan East High School, Career and Technical Education. We have silver medalists for the National Skills USA amongst us this evening. They competed at the district, regional, state, and national level in crime scene investigation. First person I would like to invite up is their sponsor, Ty Boomershine. If you'll come up here, Mr. Boomershine. I'd like to say congratulations and thank you so much for the job that you do with our students and taking time from your personal life to spend with them and take them to that next level. So thank you very much. Joining Mr. Boomershine are our silver medalists, and please remember, this is national competition. This is as high as you can go. It doesn't go any higher. So I'd like to invite Emmy Fox up, Zoe Johnson, and Zoe Darter. Not only are they silver medalists, but they're probably the most beautiful silver medalists there are around. So first I'd like to say congratulations to this group of beautiful young ladies. But I'd also like to invite either one of them or all of them to share with us any highlight of the competition. Would anybody like to say anything? Zoe. Zoe, come on.
It was just a really good experience. When we first competed at the district level, we weren't really expecting to, advance to national. We really didn't expect to get second in the nation, so it was a really high honor just to be able to achieve that.
Either one of you ladies?
All the hard work and dedication we put into it was a really wonderful seeing outcome when we got second.
The competition was a lot more than just time, so we had to go through interviews and stuff like that, and I feel like it really prepared us more than just for our criminal justice field.
So are any of the three of you planning to pursue criminal justice?
I'm going to pursue some kind of law practice, but probably not criminal.
Okay, very good. All right, well, we are thrilled that you were able to find time in your schedule because I know you've graduated and I think all three of you have already. Okay, you're going to be a senior. We've got one of them back, but they've already graduated, so I'm honored that you felt that you were willing to come back and let us honor you this evening. So thank you very much. But Zoe Darter and Emmy and Zoe Johnson, again, congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Boomershine.
I should let them pose with you and get a good picture.
Next, we have more medalists amongst us. We have from Sullivan Central High School, we have gold medalists, we have national champions. Absolutely, I would ask Mr. Putney to come join me. I don't think Miss Flannery is here, is she?
Her mother's not doing well. She's in the hospital, so she couldn't be here.
Well, this group competed in chapter display. Their display isn't here, it's rather large, but it will be on display at Westridge High School in a very nice place where you can see it. But Miss Flannery and Mr. Putney are the sponsors of the chapter display team. And on that team, I have Brooklyn Meadows, come on up, and Jackson Broadwater. Now, this was really interesting because they had to compete virtually.
Yes, ma'am.
And the day that they were to find out whether they won or not, they knew they were in the top 9. I was actually at the school, but I ended up not being able to log on and see it. But it wasn't very long after I got home that I found out that we had national champions. Again, I'm really proud of our students. I'm proud of Mr. Putney and Ms. Flannery for the time that they've spent working with our students, taking them to this level of competition. Again, they go through district, region, state, and nationals, and it's very competitive. So, congratulations. Again, thank you. What year are you?
I graduated this past year.
So these two have already graduated, and again, I'm honored that you would find time to come back and let us honor you. So thank you very much. Thank you. And congratulations.
Again, students and winners like this, that's part of why we do this. And congratulations to each of you and to the instructors.
Over the course of the past 2 years, we have recognized those teachers in our school district who earned tenure. And for many times they're not able to make the recognition for obvious reasons, so we try it one more time, and we're going to do that tonight. So if any of the following people are here, I'd ask that they come up front and join me, and that would be Joshua Campbell, Anna Armstrong, Elizabeth Jones, Shannon Peake, Derek McGee, Trevor Rumsey, Peggy Russell, Megan Thomas, Kathy Smith, Amy Smith, and Leah Davis.
Can't we on the only one?
It's okay. We're glad you're here. We want to say congratulations and present you with your certificate of tenure and tell you that we're very, very happy to have you in our school district. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
He's got to be better than anybody in the room. He's young. The next person I'd like to recognize is Highway Commissioner Scott Murray. And I would ask Highway Commissioner Murray to come up front and join me. Good to see you. If any of you have been in the vicinity of our new high school, Westridge, you know that there's been a lot of activity going on, and has been for some time. It's consisted of clearing the roadway, some new pavement, new lines, new signage, lots of different things, and I apologize, I can't recite the number of miles or feet that it's been. I know you probably can, but this group, led by Commissioner Murray, has worked diligently and very hard all summer, preparing the surrounding roads, Lynn Road, Henry Harr Road, Shipley Ferry Road, around our new Westridge High School, improving those roadways. And we want to say thank you. It's been hot. I've been out there many days watching them, and I see the sweat. I see how hard they're working, and I think they have the same common interest that we do. We're here to take care of our community and our students. And we just want to publicly say to Commissioner Murray, thank you for everything that you've done, and give you a small token of our appreciation. And just, we hope to see you soon. We hope to see you in the football stands and enjoying the football game.
I want to say, working on this road has been a privilege. You know, I know the students are excited for this new West Ridge High School. I'm excited. Back a few months ago, I was working out there and I drove up around the school and I thought to myself, I can remember in 1979, I graduated from Sullivan West High School. Well, shortly after that, I went to work for the highway department. Well, lo and behold, where was that in 1980 and 81? I was at Sullivan South and Sullivan North paving the parking lots. And I thought back then, wow, I would love to have the opportunity to attend one at South or North, because they had so much more to offer than the West did. Same as what West Ridge is going to have. I'm excited for the students. What all West Ridge has got to offer, I'm excited for them. So, and the communities come together, and I believe everybody's excited to see this school. So just thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll finish by saying, you know, that's what it takes, is everybody coming together for one common goal and supporting our students. And if you haven't been around and gotten to see parts of West Ridge, I hope you'll get to do that soon. We haven't scheduled open house yet. We still have some construction going on site, a few pieces of heavy machinery. The more we stay out of their way, the quicker they get things done that they need to get done. So things are moving very smoothly. Things are going to be ready. We will welcome students at West Ridge on Monday. We will have a staggered start where our students, our juniors and seniors will attend Monday and Wednesday, and our freshmen and sophomores will attend Tuesday and Thursday. And then all students will be there on Friday. I'd like to ask Dr. Davis to stand up. Dr. Davis is the principal at West Ridge. He has been working extremely hard. He's putting in a lot of hours, and I just want to say thank you to Dr. Davis, and I know that things are going to go well, and I know he's excited. He's gotten to share in a lot of the student excitement over the course of the past few weeks, so it's going to be great. So thank you, and thank you, Dr. Davis. Mr. Jones, I do have a few other announcements. A few more announcements in regard to school. We welcomed our staff back to school this past Monday. They have been working in their classrooms, getting ready for our students' arrival on Monday. And I know that most everyone in here knows how much transition has gone on in this school district this summer, and it has literally been amazing what has been accomplished. So I can't miss an opportunity to recognize our maintenance department and our custodians for all the work they've done this summer. I don't know, looking back on this in 10 years, if anybody would believe what we have actually accomplished this summer. Charlie and I tease each other all the time. We've been together since 1980. We came to North, talking about North, Commissioner Murray. Charlie and I were lucky enough to be new teachers at North High School in 1980. And we saw how exciting that was. So I've teased Charlie all summer that, you know, we've been together all this time and we haven't divorced each other yet. And we've made it through this summer too, which that's been a real accomplishment. So thank you, Charlie. Charlie has been a great leader for our staff in getting things done this summer. We have lots of back to school events happening tonight. We have orientations happening tomorrow all over our school district. Lots of exciting things going on. And the last thing I have to add is we do have a date that we have set, August the 18th, which is Wednesday at 9 a.m. in the morning for the official ribbon cutting at Westridge High School. Invitations are being hand delivered to lots of people, and we hope that they will be there in attendance and share in this exciting time for Sullivan County Schools and Sullivan County. This is for all of us. So, Mr. Jones, thank you.
And I want to publicly thank you for all the hard work you put in this summer. Starting last March, probably, we realized what a challenge it was to be ready for Monday, August the 9th. And the Bulldog took over. And she made it work. And she deserves so much of the credit for making sure that we open 3 new schools next week. Sometimes we forget to think about opening Central Middle School and Sullivan Heights. But even though they're not new buildings, they're new middle schools. And lots of things had to be combined. And then part of that, closing Blumpville Elementary and moving that to Holston Elementary. So there has been an enormous amount of work that has been accomplished since the last day of school this 2021 school year. And Ms. Ralph deserves so much of the credit and the leadership of going into that. But all the workers that have come in and volunteered and put in extra hours and extra time, this board thanks you for that. And Monday, we will be ready. It will be some hiccups along the way and bumps in the road, but we'll make it work. Now we're ready for unfinished business, closing of schools. I guess Mr. Hull needs to give us an update on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones. Just to keep you updated, I will say that we have gotten preliminaries on the survey at Blumpville. I'm going to pass those out to you. I do have the large size if anybody wants to see that. And due to the age there, and as far back as this goes, there's still not just a clear-cut answer to all the deed problems and all the things like that. And those are still being worked on. But I can assure you that we own that property, and you can see how it lays out. You can have a better idea of the how the ownership goes. We are having it appraised, and we should be getting that back soon. So we'll get all that to you, and then we can begin or continue discussions on where to go from there. Does anyone have any questions? I realize this is a lot to digest in a short period of time, but would show you sort of the complexity of the layout there. Also, the Colonial Heights Middle School, we have had it surveyed. Likewise, I'm going to give you a draft of that, which I've received back, I think, at the end of last week. I don't have a full-size one of it, but it's a little bit simpler to look at and digest. We did not have them survey and put on there the structure on that because that costs more, and felt like that was probably not necessary under that circumstance. There again, we're hoping to have an appraisal on that in the near future. I will draw your attention there to that little strip in the back. I don't know how many of you have been aware of that, but that's a little pass-through that was put in there quite a long number of years ago, and it enabled the students in the neighborhood to walk to school without having to go all the way around. So it's been a great thing. There's some in the instrument that gave that property to us, there is some reversion language, so we're gonna have to work through that, which we will do, but I just thought that was a little bit of a matter of interest there. So any questions on that one?
Is that showing a 30-foot right-of-way or a 30-foot access from that street? Can you tell by looking at the map?
The little access strip,
Yes.
it is showing 30 feet, I believe.
Okay, so it's not enough room for a road from the Fairlawn Drive. I think it takes 50 feet for,
I think, technically it could be. It wouldn't be a very good one. It'd be a driveway, I guess.
someone had asked me about that, but I think it takes 50 feet to actually have a public road that would go from Fairlawn over. And Scott just left, so I can't ask him, so.
Yeah. Yeah, that, I hadn't thought of that, and, there again, there's quite a few things to work through, on that, and whether that's a viable option or not, I couldn't speak to that right now, but
Okay,
it's not 50 feet, I can tell you
right.
that.
Okay, I thought it said 30, so.
Well, I think it actually says 29.42 or something, but that's the, I think the intent was for it to be 30 feet.
Okay.
The Bishop property is moving forward. I did inform them that we were not going to have the geotechnical work done there, and so that's set to close soon. Again, that's in the hands of the lawyers that'll be doing the closing. The agreement, the original agreement, scheduled it for August 16. I had originally told them that we would not be able to do that because of the anticipation that we would be having the geotechnical. Obviously, now that's a possible date. But it sort of depends on the closing attorneys, but, so it hasn't been scheduled, but it will be in the very near future.
Okay,
We'll have that wrapped up.
thank you.
Now, I think that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Ms. Rafalowski?
This time, we will move on to new business. First item on new business, item 7A, is policy 3.211, new project planning. I'm asking for waiver of rules and adoption on first reading. This policy is being brought to your attention as per our discussion during the work session. Under architect selection, item number 3, fees shall not exceed 5%. In our all our documentation that we're receiving from the federal government as it pertains to ESSER funds has a minimum of 6%. I'm asking that that line be struck from the policy and that you pass or you adopt this on first reading. And I do ask for waiver of rules.
I'll entertain a motion for waiver of rules on this, and then we'll take the motion for actual passage.
Make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hughes makes the motion for waiver of rules.
I'll second that.
Mr. Spivey seconds that. Any question on waiver of rules?
Well, I guess, no, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll ask about it in a minute.
Roll call, Ms. King.
Mr. Gilmore?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. Iverson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Rouse?
Yes.
Mr. Spivey?
Yes.
Now I'll entertain a motion that we adopt this policy.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Hughes,
Second.
second by Mr. Gilmore. Now, any questions?
I know that in the past, the 5%'s been there to basically protect us whenever we're building projects and have big things like that. I understand that some of this, CARES Act and ESSER money has got those different divisions on there. Would it not be, and I apologize, I'm sure you talked about this in work session, I wasn't able to be here. Would it not be better to put something specifically in there just for that? Because the 5% is actually a good idea. I hate that we're changing the entire policy just because of something coming along with a one-time federal money.
I think by taking the percent amount out, it leaves it open for negotiation then by Chris Davis when we do the bids on it. It doesn't mean that we have to pay 6%, but it does leave it open that when people bid, they'll be able to put that in as part of their bid. So it's really kind of a protection for us by not having a percentage in there totally. When we had the 5% total, if I remember correctly, when we took bids on building the new schools, they automatically knew they were getting 5%. And it might be to our benefit in certain times to be able to negotiate that percentage. And some of the architects might be willing to do that, so.
Currently it says not to exceed.
Right.
So, it kind of seems like that would protect us anyway, but I understand what you're saying. I kind of like the fact that it's a 5%. And I just hate that we're changing the entire policy for a one-time thing.
Well, when the bid comes in, it has to come back to the board to award it, so if it were to be a high percentage and you didn't want to award that and vote on it, then we could not do that at that time. But it makes things move a little smoother. We're getting things kind of backed up now as we are when it comes to bids.
Okay. All right. Good.
Other discussion? Roll call, Ms. King.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Iverson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Rouse,
Yes.
Mr. Spivey,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore.
Yes.
Item 7B is flu clinics. I am requesting that we offer flu clinics in our schools as we have done annually in the past for many, many years. This is a flu vaccine. It is with the consent of parents for students, and we also offer this for all our staff. So I do ask for your approval on item 7B, flu clinic.
Evelyn, do you want to clarify this is flu?
This is strictly for influenza. This is no other vaccine, any type of inoculation other than the immunization for flu.
You've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Spivey makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Rouse. Any discussion? Roll call, Ms. King.
Mr. Iverson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Rouse,
Yes.
Mr. Spivey,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
At our work session, we spent quite a bit of time discussing our ESSER funding 2.0, 3.0. We also spent time on the epidemiology and laboratory capacity grant, C, D, and E. I'm asking for approval of all three, either as together or separately, but as it was pertained and discussed in the work session, I ask your approval.
I'll entertain a motion to group C, D, and E together.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hughes makes the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Spivey seconds it. Any discussion? Roll call, Ms. King.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Rouse,
Yes.
Mr. Spivey,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Iverson.
Yes.
I'd like to ask that item 7F be, that we push that to the September meeting. We did not discuss that during the work session. We still have some work going on there, so I'm asking to push item 7F to our September board meeting. The next item on the agenda is item 7G, which is the Niswonger Rural Life Literacy Coach Grant. As I explained in our work session, this grant will reimburse our school district for a literacy grant coach, which is being supplied by the Niswonger Foundation. And at this time, I would like to recognize the Niswonger Foundation and all that they do for all the area school districts in East Tennessee. We're very fortunate to have them as a partner, and I want to say thank you to the Niswonger Foundation. I recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion? Mr. Spivey makes the motion. Mr. Iverson seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, Ms. King.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Rouse?
Yes.
Mr. Spivey?
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. Iverson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
The next item on the agenda, item 7H, is the Sullivan County Regional Health Department MOU. We did not discuss this at our work session, so I do want to take just a few minutes to talk about this. This is an annual document that I ask for approval on, and basically this document serves as our memorandum of understanding with the health department that Dr. May will serve as the physician and medical director for our school nurses. That is a requirement, that they have a medical director. He does this at no charge. In the medical director, we have lots of students that have high needs. They have diabetes. They have things that have to be treated during the school day. And as a result, he does sign those orders for our nurses. The only thing that has changed on this document from the normal document is item number 10, basically that says nothing in this agreement shall nullify nor circumvent the authority of the director of schools or the Board of Education. We discussed this today, and our supervising nurse has no issues with that. Our current MOU has expired as of 7/31, so it is very important, if at all possible, that I get this approved this evening, because as students return Monday, we are going to have medical procedures that require a medical director supervision. So at this time, I recommend approval of the MOU.
You've heard the recommendation from Ms. Rafalowski to approve the MOU with the health department. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Iverson makes the motion. Do we have a second? Dr. Rouse seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, Ms. King.
Dr. Rouse?
Yes.
Mr. Spivey?
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. Iverson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Item 7I, which is the Sullivan County Schools additional operational procedure as it pertains to the health and wellness of staff and students for 2021-2022. Board Member Spivey has made a request that this be on the agenda this evening, and at this time, I will turn it over to Board Member Spivey.
Thank you, Ms. Rafalowski. In reviewing what we titled the operational procedures and protocols, and in light of more recent guidance from the CDC, I think when I read this, if I'm a parent or a community member, I have some questions that I think we need to be held accountable for as a board and be able to answer. One of them is in paragraph 5. It says we will be open and transparent about our cases, but we will not distribute a daily case count. My question is, what does that mean? I mean, how is it open and transparent not to tell people a daily case count in the school systems? Last year we had a website that had each school, and it was updated regularly. I don't understand how that's open and transparent. And maybe I'm missing something, and that's why I want to talk about that. That's one thing. Another one that nobody really wants to talk about but is an order that we have gotten some legal guidance on is in paragraph 2, and I just recognized this in the last 24 hours, to be honest with you. It says we have no plans to issue a mask mandate for the upcoming school year. We will continue to monitor health conditions and may have to modify current plans. However, at this time, we will not require students or staff to wear a mask in the classroom, and this is the part that I want to talk about, or on the bus. So not only are we issuing a policy that is in direct violation of a clarified federal order, even if everybody feels like we shouldn't require a mask on the bus as a locality, it's not smart to put in a policy that we're going to violate a federal order unless we want a lawsuit. So I do have issue with that. I mean, it's clear in the CDC guidance, and I understand, I know the letter we got from the group of citizens based on one decision by one chancellor who's the only judge in the state of Tennessee that has ruled the way they did about masks. Don't let that abdicate our responsibility to talk about this. We were elected, whether it's popular or not, and whether you agree or disagree with me, I won't hold it against you. I respect everybody here, and I know they have the best interests of all our students in mind. But I think at this point in time, given that you have guidance from the CDC, and ironically, on the heels of us approving a memorandum of understanding with our health department that clearly states that we'll consult with them and we will follow guidance from the Tennessee Department of Health. Well, are we really following the guidance from the Tennessee Department of Health right now, or the CDC? If we don't talk about these and explain to the citizens and the people that voted for us and the parents who are sending their kids to school, when this year we took away virtual learning options, I don't mean mandating virtual learning options. I'm saying we don't offer them. We're mandating them to send their kids to school, and if they're under 12, they can't get vaccinated. And the comment from the pediatric ICU nurse, it's true, folks. We as adults have problems in a social setting being 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 out of 40 people in a room that are willing to do this. And it's not a political statement, and I don't hold it against anybody who doesn't want to wear a mask. But given that we can't vaccinate our kids 12 and under, and we're getting clear health guidance, then let's explain to people why we aren't going to follow it. Let's talk about it. I mean, I think that's the responsible thing to do as elected officials. I want to focus on all the positives of the school system, and we've got a lot of them. We do. So I don't want to detract from that at all, and that is not my purpose. I promise everybody here. I'm super excited about the school year. Part of the reason I want to talk about this now is because I want to try to make sure that all our kids can go to school all year in person. Because I agree, in-person learning is the most important, and there are health detriments to not being in-person learning. We've got a lot of populations that are underserved that depend on our school district and our neighbor school districts for meals and for somebody to care for them and watch out for them. I just always go back to what I said last year when we were dealing with COVID is legally, as a board under Tennessee law, we stand in loco parentis, as do our administrators in the school system. That means we're their guardian, we're their custodian. So let's talk about that. I mean, I want to hear everybody's thoughts. I personally don't like people's rights being restricted. I mean, I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I argue for the rights that nobody up here seems to care about, that I feel are most important too. So I don't disrespect anybody that has a different opinion about this. I just think we need to be more transparent and open and at least assure, whether we issue any mandates or not, just assure the public that we're taking this into consideration. And don't take that I'm saying anybody up here isn't. I know you are. I mean, I know all of you. I respect all of you. I know you care about our kids, but I think we need to be able to answer those questions and have that discussion So to circle back, whether we would like to modify paragraph 2 to at least delete the language of on the bus, since that's in direct circumvention of the federal order, and everybody can read the letter that we all got on that, and then also talk about what we mean about open and transparent, but that we're not going to share a case count on a website that other than the tracking component doesn't require extra work. We already had it. It was there. So I just don't know how else our citizens can be informed if we don't aid in that process. And it's ironic because I didn't realize it was going to be on the agenda right before our memorandum of understanding. But I mean, if we're coordinating with the health department, last year they were having weekly calls, and I'm not saying it has to be ramped up, but look at the data, folks. Listen to what we're all hearing on the news, and I know this evolves daily, and I hate wearing this thing. I mean, I really do, especially in my job, but this isn't about us just as adults. I'm talking about the kids, especially the kids that are 12 and under that have no option. We've taken away virtual learning options, and then we're going to make them come back to a school where it's not just we're not going to have a mask policy, it's almost trying to say we don't follow guidance. I mean, we're not going to follow guidance on a bus that's federally regulated. So, you know, the repercussions of that, I don't think that any administration would react this way, but that's where funding comes from for transportation, and that's where CDLs are issued. So I know that would be drastic, but those are remedies that the federal government would have if we're going to openly advocate that and not just say we're not going to require them, but put it in writing and vote on it. So I would at a minimum move to amend that portion and then open the discussion about what we mean by the not distributing a daily case count.
I would take the opportunity at this point to address number 5, in that all case count will come from the health department. The dashboard is gone. So that is where that occurred last year through the Department of Education. That may come back at some time, but right now we don't have that. So everything as far as any daily case count, any information coming out will come through the Sullivan County Health Department.
Can I ask one question,
yes.
Ms. Rafalowski? Are they going to break it down, or is it just going to be part of the general data for our whole region? How will a parent in Sullivan County know that it's a pediatric child in Sullivan County versus in Bristol or at homeschool or Kingsport?
I can't say one way or the other. There was no call yesterday. I did speak with our nursing supervisor today. I anticipate another call very soon, probably even some additional guidance, but as of yesterday, there was no call.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt you. Go.
No, it's perfectly all right.
Back to the discussion, Matthew. What is your recommendation? I know you said a lot,
Sure,
I'd like to hear your recommendation in simple terms, if
Sure.
possible.
My first recommendation would be that the paragraph 2, to strike the language "or on the bus." So that would be one motion I would make as a starting point.
And that is because of the violation with the federal mandate, right?
Right, and I understand that's subject to interpretation. I just don't think it's good practice to openly, vote and flout a policy.
Point well taken. So your recommendation or your motion at this point then would be to strike "or on the bus" in paragraph 2?
Yes, and that would be one of them. I can state all of them at once if you want me to, or we could do them one by one.
Let's do them one by one.
Sure.
It's simpler for me. So we have the motion then to strike in paragraph 2 "or on the bus." Do I have a second on that? I'll go ahead and second it for discussion purposes. Any discussion?
First, Mr. Spivey, you did say a lot. Are you open for, can I ask you about any of it, not just related to the bus?
Let's try to stick to the motion
Okay.
since we're discussing the motion if we can. Now, the motion, if I understand it correctly, would not change anything that we're doing because currently we're saying that wearing a mask is optional. So by taking out or on the bus, we're leaving that open to interpretation of whether or not the federal people can make them wear it on the bus, and it takes us out of what you would see as a legal liability if we leave it in there.
That would be correct, as to that paragraph, that's
Okay,
all I'm
that's-
asking that we do.
Let me follow up with one question about the bus, Mr. Spivey. And I'm asking you, not just as a board member, because you are an attorney. If we do have a policy and it becomes our responsibility to enforce it, don't that make us more likely to be responsible if there's a lawsuit than if we?
Well, I don't think what I'm asking to be changed is a policy, it's actually taking away a policy. I'm not asking anybody to enforce anything, I'm just
Okay.
saying
Okay.
not to openly say, we're not gonna do it, basically.
I got you.
And my discussion on that would be for the legal liability, I would support taking off or on the bus, since we got that legal ruling later on.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
I would support taking out that comment off or on the bus, because we're not mandating it to be on the bus, it's still optional. And we did get that ruling after, I think it was the day after we passed our procedure here.
I thought I had it, but that's okay.
The letter actually came the day after this procedure had been brought to the board. And I actually emailed that to you all the day after that.
Right.
Explaining to you that I did not have access or have that information. And you'll notice that the date on the letter is July 21, and our meeting was July 20th.
And I believe, if I interpret things correctly, on the bus mandate, if it's a federal ruling, it would be more in the hands of the bus drivers to enforce than it would be on the school to enforce.
This
Now, that might be a
would
fine line,
also
but-
affect the bus driver as well as students riding the bus. And it would include to and from school or any other event when they are riding a bus.
I don't disagree with Mr. Spivey, and I certainly don't want to argue with Mr. Spivey. That'd be an uphill undertaking there. I suppose one might say, however, if you look at the procedure here, that we will not require students or staff to wear a mask in the classroom or on the bus. And that's a different thing than the federal government requiring it. So I guess I would say, if they require it, we will have to go along with it, but it's theirs, not ours. Now, that's a sort of splitting hairs, and I don't disagree with what Mr. Spivey's saying, but I guess that's a point that could be discussed and just add to the discussion.
Well, we have another attorney's opinion too, and the question is, are masks required on school buses? And the answer is yes. Of course, he goes on to say later on in his letter that the board may choose not to follow that order, and then at that point, we would get into the question about legal liability, and that is an attorney that we use on a regular basis for opinions. So it's a matter of whether or not we want to look at legal liability ahead of time or after the fact. And if we take that "or on the bus" out of this paragraph, it leaves it back with the interpretation from the other federal attorneys as to what we can or can't do. So I would support Mr. Spivey in his recommendation to take that "or on the bus" off of that one. And the legal discussions are far above my head, so I don't want to get involved in those. Any other discussion before we have a vote on it? All right, roll call, Ms. King, and what we're voting on is in paragraph 2 to remove "or on the bus" for the mask mandate.
Mr. Spivey,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
No.
Mr. Iverson,
No.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Rouse.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-2, so we will update the operational procedures in paragraph 2 by deleting that "or on the bus." Second recommendation, Mr. Spivey.
It relates to the same paragraph, and look, I know we have to be flexible, and I appreciate that, and I always said that last year when we were dealing with this, but I think we have to consider whether it makes sense when we have kids 12 and under that can't be vaccinated, and we're seeing a surge in pediatric cases, whether we require masks. I don't like mandates on anybody or anything, otherwise I couldn't do the job I do all day long, because I'm always fighting against them, but we're in a different role, and it's not, I'm not trying to push any opinion on anybody, but I don't think that we're being responsible if we're not willing to sit up here and explain why we do or don't think that's a good idea at this point. And I realize it may change. So for discussion purposes, and I may not even get a second, but I would make a motion that we consider mandating masks in Sullivan County schools.
You've heard Mr. Spivey's motion. Do I have a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Do you have another one?
Okay, probably the same response, but I guess, like I said, if we're not willing to publicly say why or why not and have a discussion, I don't think we're doing our job. I'll make a recommendation, since that one failed, that we have a recommendation similar to what Johnson City Schools, that strongly encourages the use of masks in schools.
You've heard the recommendation from Mr. Spivey to modify paragraph 2 to where it would be students and staff are strongly encouraged to wear a mask, but it will not be a requirement, would be the wording on that. Students and staff are strongly encouraged to wear a mask, but it would not be a requirement. Currently that reads, student and staff may wear a mask if they so desire, but it will not be a requirement. Do I have a second on Mr. Spivey's motion? I firmly believe that wearing of the mask is up to the parent and to the student. I know that this is not open for discussion since I didn't second the motion, but you asked for thoughts on that. I think it's optional now. If a student wants to wear a mask, if a teacher wants to wear a mask, if a staff member wants to wear a mask, that's where I come down on this issue personally and professionally. And I will afford the privilege to any other board member who wants to comment on that, because I do think Mr. Spivey deserves a response from us if we...
And I promise that I'm not just saying it. I think everybody knows me well enough up here. Like I respect everybody. I respect all their opinions, and I know they're coming from the right place. I am not trying to call anybody out. I'm just trying to address an issue I think we need to talk about. So please don't take it like everybody has to respond now. I mean, if it died, I understand. You know, I'm part of a board. I've always said, whether I agree with it or not, once we speak. Now, doesn't mean we can't bring it back up, especially in this context, but I'm not gonna, you know, I'm gonna support the will of the board. So if you'd rather talk about how you feel about that at the end, don't feel like, you know, it's gotta be, oh, I don't respond, or I'm not, you know, I really didn't mean to make it that way.
No, I just wanted to respond.
Sure. No, I just meant in case, you know, if they wanna do it, you know, when
Right.
we wrap
Yes.
up or
Right.
whatever, that's fine too.
Yeah, and I'd be glad to respond as well, Mr. Spivey, and I think it's a fair question. I oppose the mandate. I support the option for anyone who wants to do it. I've always opposed the mandate. I talked to a vice principal yesterday that said she saw her students, had students in the classroom for the first time in 500 days. I talked to a principal last year when we done away with the mandate that said he hadn't saw his students' faces in, I forget the number of days, but it was over a year. Our test scores have plummeted. We got to get kids back in school and get things back to normal. I understand the surge. I don't think we're treading on anyone's rights if we allowed the parents to do it. I don't like my wife's a second grade teacher. It's a big task to ask second graders to keep a mask on, and it's not realistic, and it really don't have the results you think it does. But I think it's the choice of the parents, and I'm glad to explain that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Any other board members want to respond at this time, or wait till the very end?
Mr. Jones, I do, in relation to this, I do have one other motion, and
Okay.
it's not about masks. It kind of goes to, I know I said a lot the first time, but it goes back to my point about, this is one where I get completely where Mr. Hughes is coming from and Mr. Jones, but this is why I raised that issue, because I feel like in some ways we're not giving them a choice when we don't have a virtual learning option. So I would make a motion that we at least, and I know we might not be able to get that up and running, you know, by Monday, but I also know we have the school number and we had it set up last year that we at least consider that. So I would make a motion that we reopen virtual learning in light of not having any mask mandates.
You've heard the motion from Mr. Spivey to open virtual learning.
Yeah, and just to clarify, not mandate it by any means, because I personally, 100% agree with you. The kids need to be in school.
Do I have a second?
I have a question, Mr. Spivey, when you said, can we consider reopening virtual?
But it-
Consider or open?
Open, but obviously, I also don't want to. One thing I never try to do, and I guess I've kind of done it to Ms. Rafalowski, but is to ever, you know, it's not like I had gotten to talk to her about that. So I also really appreciate the feasibility of doing that. So I at least want to discuss it. My motion would be to open it, but if she has, I'd like to hear her thoughts as well, because I respect those greatly.
What I would say to Mr. Spivey and the remainder of the board as far as virtual learning goes, we will have some opportunity for virtual learning. It will not be a wide open virtual learning school. With a virtual school, we did request a number to have for just in case. And I think that was wise on our part to have in our back pocket. But with a virtual school also comes other requirements. And we did not budget for those other requirements. But it doesn't say that we don't have some opportunities within our current schools to do some virtual learning for situations where we have students who are going to be out of school for a short period of time, maybe 20 days quarantine or something of that nature. We do have software in place with the Edgenuity with those courses. We discussed it at length today, how we would address our middle school and high school as well as our elementary school. We also are pretty close to being able to produce an FAQ as far as things go with the school district. When this happens, this is what this happened, this is how we will handle this. We want to put it before our principals. We're in a little bit of a crunch with school starting tomorrow. There's so many things going on tomorrow. We could not get our principals together, but we will do that very early next week and try to finalize that document and send that to you all as well before any finalization of that. But at this point in time, I would say we have not budgeted to staff fully a virtual learning school.
In light of that, I mean, how much work would it take for you and Ingrid and everybody else in the team to just get a conceptual idea of what that may cost as an option? Because I'm not, in light of your comments, I'm certainly not going to spring that on anybody, even if it was going to get a second. But I would be interested, and I think it would be prudent, whether we ever do it or not, to know what that cost may be, because I think none of us thought when all this started that we would still be, and some people feel like we're not in the situation, and that's fine, but I certainly think the facts show otherwise, that this is not something that's going away. And what the reason I keep bringing this up is I want to make sure our kids stay in school, because I agree we had tons of learning loss. Everybody did. So I want to talk about all these things so we make sure our kids stay in the classroom all year long.
Before you could get a cost estimate, you would have to know what grade level students you were looking at, which would mean you'd have to assess the students out there in elementary, middle school, and high school to determine the number of teachers that you would need to fully staff that. So I think it would be unreasonable to try to get a cost estimate on that. You could say you'd need 5 elementary teachers, and you might need more than that at the high school level if you tried to do something at the high school level. And if your motion was to do just something for those under the age of 12 because of the vaccination age, it might make it a little different, but still you would have to determine what population you're looking at. I sat down with the staff last year when we were trying to do something with virtual learning back in November and December, and it's a monumental task. I mean, it takes away from what the other students need. But I think what Ms. Rafalowski is saying, by looking at what we may have a need for, we may find that we have some smaller classes than we need, and we might be able to pull some things out and do some things. It won't be a full-fledged online virtual learning like we would want, but parents do have the option of homeschooling, which I'm not pushing that, but they do have that option, and some have chosen that, and I would hope that they would not. But that's at the start of school year, that would be the time to do it if you're going to do it. Trying to start something 6 weeks into the school year could become a really challenge for us, and our learning loss would increase if that does happen. But I would suggest that we wait till we know what the enrollment numbers are, especially at the elementary levels, and see if there is any room in the staff in there to see if there's any possibility of offering some things for those who might be medically compromised or something of that nature. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Rafalowski, but
No, that's fine. Certainly, if the board wants that, Mr. Spivey, and we are happy to work on that. We feel like we do have a few components already in place if we do have to go in that direction. This is, the numbers have increased very quickly here upon us, and I, like many others, was looking forward to hopefully some normalcy with this school year for our students and for our staff. We had a lot of success this summer in our summer camps. There were lots of success over the entire state with the summer camps. I think I shared some of those statistics with you all earlier. We will, just for information purposes, we will continue to have masks. We will continue to have hand sanitizer available at our schools for students or anyone that comes in. It'll be an option that's sitting there on a table for them, so that's not going away by any means, but certainly if the board, and if it comes to the situation where we need to move in that direction, we will work very hard to make that work.
Thank you, Ms. Rafalowski, and, you know, part of why a lot of us talk the way we do and ask questions, because we want people to hear just that, and I have no doubt in our school system or administrators are planning, so I'm glad you explained that you all had that, you know, you're at least working on it, planning for it, so that's part
Yes,
of
sir.
the reason I bring up and ask those questions. Thank you, Ms. Rafalowski, and I'm sorry to kind of spring that on you. I always try not to do that to anybody.
Thank you.
It's okay for me to speak?
Pardon?
Is it okay for me to speak?
Yep.
The only thing I'll ask, and I understand where Mr. Spivey's coming from, and I understand what his question is as far as looking at the possibility. I would ask us, until we get to a point, if we get to a point where that becomes more of a reality, to not move forward on like a survey or anything. I think that will cause so much controversy and so much hope in some people, aggravation in other people. I think it will cause so much ill will that it would be a very, very bad thing for us to do. So unless something moves forward, and I do trust Ms. Rafalowski, I know that she's got her hand on the pulse of this, and she's been watching it, and I know that she's a planner. Just spend a day with her and you know she's a planner. And I trust that she will watch that and listen to that and go forward, but I really would prefer us not to make any kind of a public thing like that. We're gonna do a survey, we're gonna ask, we're gonna find out who's interested in it. I just think it's gonna send a really bad signal. It's gonna cause a lot of issues.
We'll make the commitment tonight that before any type of survey would be completed, it would have to be approved by the board first before we move forward with that. And I think that's probably our normal procedure, but just to clarify it so that those in the audience can hear and those who are watching the program can hear. So before we move forward with anything, we would bring it back to us.
Thank you.
I would add to that, we do not have any plans currently for a survey, and we do have a board policy in regard to surveys. So I would reference that if we were going to encounter or take that on as part of the process.
Thank you.
Good point. Next on our agenda is public comment for non-agenda items, and I have no other forms that's been filled out for public agenda items. So at this time, we're ready for board chairman comments, and mine will be brief due to my voice, and maybe that's a good thing. If you look at your calendar, you'll notice that on September the 27th, we have a fall TSBA meeting, and I think it's supposed to be in Bristol. I'm not sure who all signed up last week. Only two of us have signed up, Dr. Rouse and I. And okay, and that's going to be at the new Tennessee Middle School in Bristol, where we'll get a tour of that facility.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
And I don't want to interrupt our board chair's comments, but I reached out to Dr. Grissom, TSBA, earlier this week, trying to see if we could work out something for the fall district meeting to be held at Westridge High School in next fall. And she has confirmed that Sullivan County Board of Education will be the host for the 2022 fall district meeting, and it will be held at Westridge High School. So I want y'all to put that on your radar and know that, I'm very proud to announce that, and that you as a Board of Education will be hosting many boards from across East Tennessee next year in September at Westridge High School.
On August the 26th, we have our work session, and that should be at 4:30. And September the 2nd is our regular board meeting, so make sure we get those in our calendars. If we need to change something later, I guess we can. And Mayor Venable just mentioned to me that he wants to speak.
Yes, I would. I must have missed the opportunity.
You.
Mr. Jones, what was that
I
second
apologize,
date?
Mr. Chair, if I missed the opportunity for public comment on non-agenda items.
September 2nd.
September 2nd.
Is it proper that I
No,
address?
you go right ahead.
Was
Okay,
was the board meeting.
Well, let me begin by saying, you look a lot better than you sounded this week when we were talking. I'm glad to see you making progress.
After 9 days of continuous hiccups, I feel much better.
Well, I hope you are. I hope you.
Thank you.
Do make progress. Thank you for giving me just a couple of minutes to address the board. I've not had that opportunity in the past, and I've never felt the need to, quite honestly, but I know, after your last meeting a couple of weeks ago, I got a couple of calls and said, you need to get on YouTube and watch that, and I don't do YouTube much, to be honest with you. It would just be an unusual situation, so I asked that the comments that were made about me be transcribed, and they were, and, person that called me said, you need to respond to those. And, as I read them, I thought, yes, I certainly want to respond to those, but the fact is, your board meeting in this setting is not the proper forum to respond to those comments. So I'm not gonna do that here. We're gonna have plenty of time next spring for me to make responses to those types of comments. And so I think it is not appropriate that I address that here tonight. So you might ask why I'm here. The fact is, I'm here to congratulate you and the board on the journey that you're getting ready to complete Monday morning. Mr. Chairman, you mentioned opening 3 schools. It's a historic day for Sullivan County. And I'm here to congratulate you and to celebrate with you on reaching this point in that journey. Now I'm going to ask Director Rafalowski to go down memory lane with me for just a minute. The only look back on this, or on any issue that I want right now, is to look back on how we got here. And I believe, Evelyn, I believe in 2014, when Dr. Yenny left, we began a series of 2 years of meetings, moving toward what we thought might be in the best interest of Sullivan County. And after those 2 years, I think I was proud, and I believe Dr. Rafalowski was proud, to sign a memorandum of understanding that laid out what our hopes and dreams were for the future for Sullivan County education for all the students here. And we signed that. And then our next step was to go to the county commission. The memorandum of understanding was that the county commission would issue $140 million in bonds, divide that as prescribed by state law among our 3 different school systems based on ADA, and that we would go forward there. Well, that really didn't work for Sullivan County. That division didn't work for Sullivan County, so we continued to meet. And the city manager of Kingsport came up with the idea of selling North High School. And that did fit Sullivan County's needs. So then all we had to do was get 13 votes on the county commission. And on December the 12th, at a regular scheduled meeting of the county commission, we were able to cobble together 14 votes to support that. We needed 13. And at that point in time, it was turned over to the Sullivan County School Board to fulfill your responsibilities, and you've done that well. I know you've had some stumbling blocks, there's been some roadblocks, but you've done that well, and you've achieved your goal, I think. I might mention that this year's commission only have remaining 3 people of those 14 who voted to issue $140 million in bonds. So for doing the right thing, sometimes, there is a price you pay. And those people were more than willing to pay that price to get us to where we are today, and to have a tremendous celebration at West Ridge High on Monday. And your ribbon cutting I'll be at on the 18th, I believe. And I'm excited about your football season too, and your basketball season. So anybody that can't be excited about what's happening in Sullivan County right now probably doesn't have a pulse. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the few minutes I have. As I say, we'll have plenty of time next year to discuss the comments. It's your board meeting, and I would not disrupt it for that reason. So thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate the comments, and I hope you'll be able to make the ribbon cutting ceremony, and you're welcome anytime to the board meetings. This time, I'm going to start with board comments with Mr. Iverson on the left down here.
Just a couple comments. I would like to, Highway Commissioner Murray's already gone, but I would really like to say, for what they did, I was in Wisconsin at an air show, and I got a call, hey, we just finished up. So I went by Saturday, I guess. I'm not sure what day it was. Anyway, I went by and.
It's Friday.
Friday, okay. It exceeded my expectations. I really thought they were just gonna widen a little bit. I didn't think that they were gonna do the things that they did. The tiles underneath the road, they did a great job. I'm glad we honored them. It's definitely Scott and his entire crew, but I know that Jim Montgomery and Eric Kearney were really involved in everything, and I really appreciate everything that they did. So I wanna make sure to give my personal just shout out to those guys, because what they did was fantastic. Another thing that we mentioned tonight, which I think we need to continue saying, great job these guys, our Sullivan County, our Department of Education maintenance guys. What they moved, I'm very surprised. I don't like to bet against anybody doing work like that, but it was an amazing amount of work. And I know that they're still continuing, because as I was going through Westridge, they said, oh, those two tables showed up today, and those two tables over here just got here yesterday. They're still going at it, and it's amazing that they did all the stuff that they did, but it shows a lot of spirit. It shows a lot of dedication, hard work on their part, so I really do appreciate that. And I'd really be an idiot not to talk about the teachers that are going to those 3 new schools, moving their classrooms and moving everything that they had to do. The fact that they're doing this over the summer, it's impressive. They did this on their own time. They did this outside of their work schedule, because they have such dedication, and they really love their job. They love their classrooms. Talking to some of them, they're in their new classrooms, they're so excited about it, the improvements that they have in their classes. So like I say, the teachers, fantastic job. I really appreciate everything they've done. And I'll say, Dr. Davis, thanks a lot for everything you've done, but also the amount of work we just loaded on you because of TSBA. Good luck on that. But that's it. Thank you, guys.
Dr. Rouse?
I just want to say, I hope that teachers, staff, administrators have the best year you've ever had going forward. And I know that each one of you will work hard to give our students in Sullivan County the best life they can possibly have. Thank you.
Mr. Hughes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This month, I'm going to continue my series of doing a profile on a different commissioner every month. Some months I'll do 2. I've talked to the video guy, and on the months I do some of the longer ones. They're going a couple will be up to an hour, and I'll have him do those, and the board can leave, and people won't have to hear it all. But tonight's, I've done a little better summary, and it's a little shorter. But I'll try to keep my comments as brief as I can. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for coming tonight. Hope you attend all of our meetings. I spent the last weekend reviewing my notes, your minutes, and your videos, and I can clearly see how bad some of you wanted a 6 or 8 inch sewer line. I still don't know why, but I will say this. Before I'm done, you might want to dig that line and just crawl in it, because it will become more and more difficult for you to explain your actions to the public. And one of the things that you're going to have to explain is the way you treated our people when they come to your meetings. It's all on video, so don't bother disputing it. Some have asked me since the last meeting why I waited till now to respond to 5 years of inaccurate information. Now, that's not to say that I'm totally accurate, because I can make a blunder here or there, but if I do, I'll do a correction. But the answer is simple. We have been focused on the job at hand, and we decided that in the best interest of the school system, we would wait. We now have our schools, we have the raise, we have the turf, and so now it's the time I have chosen to respond. And let me be clear, I cannot be threatened. I don't owe anyone. I will not negotiate. I will not capitulate, and I will not cooperate. I have but one goal, and that's to help our students and our employees. Mr. Vance showed up last month and spoke and pretty much asked if we could all just get along and move on. Well, my answer is no. The County Commission spent 5 years threatening, humiliating, and spreading inaccurate information. So I'll spend the next year setting the record straight. And after that, the commission would like to have a good relationship. Well, that's up to them. Now, hopefully, we'll have a new commission. I'm not just a school board member. I'm a taxpayer, and I'm ashamed, sickened, and shocked at what I've seen. It has been hard to keep quiet. If the public ever fully understands what you've done in their name, they'll vote you all out. And that's where I come in as a taxpayer. Tonight, I will continue to profile our commissioners, especially as it relates to their votes and behaviors toward the school system. However, I will not limit my remarks to the school issues in the future. I made the decision to do this most recently after the theatrics and outrageous claims made at the July the 8th, 21 budget meeting, particularly how some tried to take credit for the historic raise in that budget. I'd like to take just 1 second to explain for the public's benefit a simple view of how the budget process works. Our school board approves the budget, which is prepared by our director, Evelyn Revelowski, and Ingrid Deloche, along with our board chair and our central office staff. It is then the duty of the county commission to approve it before it goes to the state. There's a funding mechanism that somewhat protects the school system by establishing a minimal level of funding. That formula is known as the BEP, or the Basic Education Program. And the minimum funding level is called the MOE, which stands for Maintenance of Efforts. When I talk about us using our own money, I'm referring to the money that's in our budget, money that we just need to move from one line item to another. The county commission has to vote for us to move it. It's more or less a procedural function designed to make sure that we don't spend more money than we have. In other words, moving the money should not put us in a position where we have an unbalanced budget. Now, this is a very simplistic explanation, but it's to help the public understand what is being said. And again, I volunteer to meet with anyone and go over some of these issues. And I've actually had several invitations since the last meeting that I will do. Tonight, I'm going to talk about Commissioner John Gardner. I begin by stating that Mr. Gardner has been on the commission, the best I can tell, September the 20th, 2010 looked to me like his first meeting. I went through the minutes from his entire tenure, and I could not find one example of him grandstanding, humiliating our employees while they were addressing the commission, or taking credit for things he actually had a right to take credit for, much less things he had fought at every turn. He has, upon occasion, refused to do his duty and allow the school system to use their own funds. All of these things you'll come to find out that many commissioners have made their trademark. December the 20th, 2018 was one of the disappointing votes by Mr. Gardner. He was one of 15 commissioners that voted no on allowing us to move money to build a sewer line. And there was absolutely no excuse for these votes. This is a county commission run amok. Why do they think they have the right to engineer a sewer line? Does anyone here remember any of these commissioners interfering with the Bristol or Kingsport project? Why do they think they can do it here? Remember, the new school was being built. It had to have a sewer line. And if this isn't incompetence, I can't imagine an example. I have some video that you will enjoy later this year on this issue. July the 18th, 2019, they finally did vote to allow us to use our money to build a sewer line, in large part because of the jam that they were in with Bristol. It was also the vote they used to rescind $584,000 that they had previously given us. I believe it was in May. So at this point, I want to take you through a couple of things, just for the purpose of proving. I'm going to read from the resolution on July the 18th. Whereas the Sullivan County Board of Commissioners approved appropriating $584,000 to install 15,000 feet of 6-inch line, force line from Sullivan East Middle School to tie into the Bristol sanitary line at Weaver Elementary School, and 53 feet of 8-inch gravity flow at Sullivan East High. Through months of discussions, it was determined that a 4-inch force main suggested by Mattern and Craig was not adequate to accommodate future development along the Weaver Pike and would not adequately service 2 schools and several businesses when businesses develop in this area. I'm gonna stop right there a minute. I'm gonna read some emails to you. June the 26th, to Mr. Venable, from Randy Beckner. Commissioner Glover was on site yesterday and shut down the work because the force lane was not changed from a 4-inch to a 6-inch. I understand a couple commissioners were wanting to upsize, but as we discussed, with a force main, bigger isn't always better. The force main is, if it's oversized, the sewage stays in the system longer and it goes septic, creating odor, corrosion, and issues with the system. When we met to review the preliminary plans, Commissioner King attended. This was the discussion. We were told that the construction on the pump stations and force line was for the sole purpose of serving county schools, and there was no money for additional work. Based on this, we proceeded with the final design. It should be noted that the current design has the capacity to serve the middle school, high school, and future elementary school, and 75 residents. With a future change of pumps, it could handle 200. So they had that email when they done this resolution. With no communication occurring between the Sullivan County Department of Education and the Sullivan County Board of Commissions, plans changed to the original 4-inch line, ignoring Resolution 2019-0547. Whereas, in an email correspondence from Mattern and Craig, Randy Beckner on June the 25th, 2019, relative to a 4-inch line, reflects the following. Just spoke with the chairman, that was me. He is fully aware that the line is a 4-inch line. He said if anyone else comes out there, please continue working and refer them to him. That's true. The county commission has no authority over this project. I thought that would be obvious. But let's go back to the first paragraph. It says, whereas through months of discussion, that was just a couple of those guys making a discussion. Nobody else. They among themselves, I guess they decided. But the Sullivan County Board of Education has declared that sufficient funds are available in their general purpose funds reserve account in the amount of $1,025,200 for the construction of a 4-inch sanitary sewer line and the rescission of Resolution 2019-5-47. It is fitting, following the Sullivan County Board of Education Chairman Michael Hughes' clear declaration that the Sullivan County Commission has no authority over this project, transferring this sewer project into a school department obligation. Well, see, that's something I thought was obvious, guys. It was always our obligation in our project. And I just wanted to take that little opportunity, and there's going to be so much more. I'm going to try to move on because I know that some people have to get home here, but that's just one example. And I hope that the people out there, and trust me when I say they do, know that about the only thing the commission did, they undone. They gave us $584,000, and when I do one of the profiles, I'll be taking you through the meeting where I was told that if Mr. King and Mr. Glover didn't get what they wanted, they'd take that $584,000. We'll talk about that in the future. So how did Mr. Gardner vote on the issues in question on December the 12th, 2016? A huge vote took place. That was the vote to issue the bonds and build the schools. Not just Westridge, but also Sullivan East Middle, the DB addition, and the new middle school in Bristol. This was the vote that inspired many that I will profile to spend years trying to bring a stop to the school and trash everyone associated with that vote. So to be clear, it was the vote that first allowed the school system to consolidate and become so much more efficient that we can provide a better education and better pay for our teachers. Now I'm going to run through those names right quick because, as the mayor mentioned, a lot of those people are not here anymore. Some didn't run, some lost, but I think they deserve to have their names mentioned. And I'll try to be able to see this. Mark Bowery, John Crawford, John Gardner, Sherry Grubb, Andy Hare, Joe Heron, Dennis Hauser, who I think has passed away, Bill Kilgore, Kip McLaughlin, Randy Morrell, Mark Vance, Robert White, Eddie Williams, Mac Hart. Now this list is from the minutes if I didn't miss someone. You will notice later in my profiles that some of these same people that voted for this bond tried to stop the high school. I will show you who, and I'll show you why when I do those profiles. You can see that John Gardner stood up Gwinnett County, and all those that were critical of the schools were just wrong. These schools are and will continue to be a success for many decades to come. What is relevant is the fact that those that disagreed with the vote are still bitter and act selfishly. They even put the safety of the children at risk through petty anger. They simply put, they continue to throw a tantrum because things didn't go the way they wanted. Once the vote was taken, it was everyone's job to act in the best interest of the students. Thank you, John Gardner, for your leadership. So how did John vote on other issues? Let's look at the October 2020 when we voted to put turf on both schools. Remember, this was a simple matter of just allowing our system to move money from one line item to another. Didn't cost the commission a penny. And even though John Gardner is what many refer to as a city commissioner, he voted yes. So again, thanks, John Gardner. Remember those 4 lonely votes? Judy Blaylock, Herschel Glover, Dwight King, Doug Woods. 2 were absent, that was Crosswhite and Locke, and 1 inexplicably abstained. That was Todd Broughton. Note that while many of what is referred to as city commissioners voted for our county students to have turf, while some of our very own county people voted no. Why would they do that? Could it be that they're still angry that they were not allowed to choose the location of the middle school or the size of the sewer line? Is this the kind of leadership you want in Sullivan County? Thank you, John Gardner, for your help. The students of our high schools are thrilled with the turf. So how did John Gardner vote on April the 18th, 2019, when a vote was taken to stop, temporarily pause, the construction at Westridge? Remember, this was after construction was underway, and the stated reason was to make sure that we had money to finish the school, when the simple fact that stopping the project would guarantee that we didn't have the money to finish the school. John Gardner voted no. He saw through the politics and did what was right. So did Colette George, Sam Jones, Randy Morrell, Patrick Shull, and Gary Stidham. The resolution passed, but as I said before, I trashed it. I'd like to point out here that Patrick Shull voted against the $140 million bond, but he didn't vote to stop the school while it was under construction. I'm getting to the end here because I did just summarize, but February was the first month that I could see where the resolution to pass the Financial Act was entertained on first reading. After being deferred a few times, it was voted on May the 20th and was supposed to be implemented in 13 months. The purpose of this plan, from my view, was to try to get more power over the school system. It is sponsored by, you guessed it, Herschel Glover and Joyce Crosswhite. You'll remember Joyce Crosswhite. She was the one when the media asked her why she voted to stop the project under construction, famously said not to stop it, just to pause it. We'll have more about her later. But the vote on this issue was 22 yes, 1 abstained, and 1 absent. Sadly, John Gardner did in fact vote for this, I think, without even consulting the school system. This is the plan that the mayor was referring to when he used it to threaten Randall Jones in the budget meeting. And in this case, Mr. Gardner voted with the majority of the commission. This plan, no doubt, was recommended by the Comptroller's office because this makes their job easier. But it doesn't work well in large counties. I'll also include a segment later on Mr. Mumpower later this year, and I'm doing a research on him now. I'm also working on something for John Lundberg. While this plan does not give them the control they think it does, I think it will turn out to be a huge mistake. This issue will get more attention later in the year. This is my short profile of John Gardner. I think in over a 10-year tenure as a commissioner, he's done a good job. I hope in the future he'll resist the temptation to vote with the loud crowd. I would vote for John. I think he's intelligent, well-spoken, and I like the way he runs the meetings when he's given a chance. This is a short review of his time. It was hard to choose what to mention. The fact that it takes so little time is a credit to him and the job he's done. There are a few others that compare favorably with Mr. Gardner. Many commissioners will take much longer because most have failed miserably in their efforts. I have over 5,000 documents to summary, so it is a challenge. In some future reviews, I'll be playing audio tapes so you can hear it from their own mouths. I'll reveal offers that have been made and outright threats, and much more. But that's for later. I want to mention 2 other things really quick. One of the things they seem to always say, lack of communication, lack of communication. You know, I was a chairman for 4 years, and I've been on the boards for 7 or so. And you know, I've had like 4 commissioners reach out for me out of 24. Miss Stanley, maybe 100 times or more, but very few have ever reached out. In fact, I can prove that I've reached out for many of those and offered to meet and explain some things, particularly when we had the $800,000 dispute without an answer. Many of them predicted doom and gloom when we done the new schools. We had more kids at the middle school, and we're going to have even more at the high school. I think we're over 2,050 now. I know many people have been asking for meetings on these topics. When you do, give me your topic and your commissioner. I will talk about the commissioners after I make their presentation, and I'll be glad to meet with anyone. Mr. Chairman, thank you for indulging me the time.
Thank you. Mr. Gilmore?
I'd just like to say that this past week I went to Impact Community Center in Bluff City. It's formerly the home of Bluff City Middle School, and the work that Chris Lazier and his crew and the nonprofits that currently reside there needs to be celebrated. If you've not been there to take a tour, you need to do it. Next on my docket is to see what he's done in Holston Valley, because I understand it's impressive as well. But it's very nice to see a community member say something that he's going to do in a presentation to this board and actually exceed what he said he was going to do. So I just want to publicly acknowledge him and hope that we will do that and invite him to a future board meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Spivey?
I'll try to be brief. Man, again, I'd apologize to Ms. Rafalowski because I never want to spring things on people like I did about the virtual learning. I always try to avoid that. I just want to reiterate what we've heard all night. You know, and you heard it from the kids. They said not just the field, but the school is even better. How excited I am for Sullivan County in opening these new schools, and to keep all our thoughts and prayers with the teachers and the students. We're coming back from a hard time, and hopefully we can stay on top of these issues and keep our kids in school all year long and have a great school year. Thanks.
Mr. Robinson?
Just praying that our students this year have a great year. Last year was rough. I get Mr. Spivey, the mask mandate, I get it. Everybody's worried. I think the main thing right now, we need parents at home that's actually not telling their kids to wear masks. Not to be bullying the kids that want to wear masks. You know, that's the problem in our society right now. Everybody wants to make fun of somebody because they do something a little different. You know, my girls, they're both asking if they're going to wear the mask, and I don't really know what to tell them. Whether to make them wear it or not wear it. I'm just tired of it. I hate it for our kids. I hate it for our teachers, our principals, everybody we got in our whole school system. Just praying everything goes good, and our seniors get to enjoy the new year at Westridge and East. Let them, seniors, this is it. This is your year. You know, make it a good one, and pray that you get to be in school every day. And this may make some people mad, but Mr. Hughes, I really don't understand where your comments right there have any place at a school board meeting. I don't. I get your problems with the commissioners. I do. I get it. But take that to Facebook Live or something. Go do some research on some of our students, some of our teachers, and give us something there instead of standing up there bad mouthing the commissioners. All that is making it worse on us. And I don't want to be a part of that. I'm not the type of the guy that stands behind the mic and puts somebody else down. I'll never be that. If I got a problem, I'm going to talk to you face to face. Do research on our kids, our teachers, our principals. Give us something on that so maybe we'll want to listen to.
Well, Mr. Robinson, I'm going to respond to that. First of all, you weren't here last month, or you would know why I done it. Did you watch the video of the county commission meeting?
I was actually enjoying time with my family.
Well, then you don't know what you're talking about. This is what I'm going to continue to do. I'm going to continue to pray. Have you seen the way they treated your director and Ingrid Deloche in any meeting? You did not, did you?
I've seen it. They come there, but this is ridiculous. We're adults. Students is watching this. Set an example. Don't stoop to their level if they do us like that.
There's elections coming up. These commissioners took the first swing at Mr. Jones in the budget meeting. I'm gonna finish these profiles, and if you don't like it, you can get up and walk out.
Well, that's what I'm gonna do, because you're scooping to their level. We're supposed to be teaching kids to be better, and we're stooping to their level.
I'm
Quit
pointing
doing that.
out their facts, their facts.
Well,
I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Mr. Jones, before we,
No, you missed your opportunity. We had meeting adjourned.
Mr. Jones, I protest because he's up there fighting